Welcome back to the Brothers Grimdark, everybody. Our Blood Bowl League is fastly approaching its first game of the season, and today I'm just going to have a quick run through of some of the things we've changed for our league, some of the house rules. So for the most part, I think Blood Bowl is a fantastic game. Very quickly became my favourite game to play. It's just very fun, very lighthearted, really enjoying it at the moment. And for the most part, I think this is a really good book. But there's a couple of things I would change, as with any game. There's some rules that you don't like, and especially for a league where we're kind of all new, still learning it, maybe a slight skill level in places. There's some things that I would change just to make sure that everybody's kind of on as even playing field as they can be. So, first things first is not really anything to do with that, it's just a matter of choice. So there is a rule in here called Brawling Brutes. So this is a rule that was brought in for some of the bashy teams that they can basically select if they want. Actually, they can't select it. That's one of the issues that I have with this rule. So they are forced into taking Brawling Brutes, which means when they score a touchdown, that player gets 2 star player points to help them buff up and get new traits rather than 3, which you normally get. But when a player on that team causes a casualty, they get 3 SPP, star player points, rather than the 2 that you normally get. Now, I like that in theory. I like that the hitty teams aren't, because they're not going to score, because an orc team isn't going to score as many touchdowns as a wood elf team. I like that there's another way that they can advance themselves they can do Brawling Brutes and increase how many star player points they're going to get in a game. However, I don't like that it's forced into however many teams it's for. 5 or 6 teams have to take it, and I don't like that the rest of the teams can't take it. So I basically opened up that for everyone in the division, to everyone in the league, to say, if you want to take Brawling Brutes, you can. And the 2 that went for it were Johnny with his Lizardmen and Cameron with his Necromantic Horror. So keep an eye out for that as the season goes on. You'll see that coming up here and there when those players are able to advance quicker or slower than they might have done if they hadn't taken Brawling Brutes. Alright, and second point I'd like to cover is inducements. So there are a whole bunch of inducements that you can take as a Blood Bowl team, and the way you get access to inducements is if you come up to a game and maybe you're suffering a few casualties and your opponent isn't, or they've just advanced a little bit more than you have, or maybe their team's been in the league that you guys want to play for 3 years and you want to join. Inducements will help you level the playing field for a mismatch like that. So again, I think this is really good. It means if your buddy's been playing a league for 3 years and they really love their team, but you want to join, you can join that team and not just get pounded every game, because you'll get access to inducements. So there's a lot in here, and most of them are good, just purely from a streamlining things. And everybody's got busy lives, so everybody doesn't have to completely delve into all the different inducements they can take and feel like they're missing out on things. I've just streamlined that a little bit. So if you're watching our games and you're kind of screaming, oh, this person, they should have taken this would have been great for this game, it's probably just because I've not included it in the inducements that we have for this league. So I've dropped a bunch. I'm not going to go through exactly what I've dropped and what I haven't. The players know, and I'm letting them know before games basically what they can and can't take, and it just kind of streamlines things a little bit. So that's the second league rule that I've come up with. Alright, so now we're talking about being in a game. So again, one of the things I want to do to try and level the playing field, Blood Bowl generally is it flips on its head as soon as it looks like one team's in the ascendancy. A lot of the time, the dice will just flip around, and it is really fun that way. However, there are odd games where a team can just run away with it a little bit. If it's a lot of injuries get caused, or just a lot of touchdowns, and it feels like your dice are just against you and there's nothing you can do. One thing I've brought in for the league to kind of help out with that is if a team goes 3 players down, i.e. they've got 3 players less on the pitch than their opponent, I'm going to give that team a reroll, just to give them a little extra boost, make it feel like they can get back into the game. However, they won't get that reroll if they are in the lead, only if it's a draw or they're losing. So that's one of the things. Second one is, very similarly, if a team goes 2 touchdowns up, they're 2-0 up, the other team will get a reroll. And again, they won't get that reroll if they have 3 players more on the pitch, because that's probably already going to make the tide swing at some point. You know, if you've got 11 players and your opponent's only got 8, even though you're 2 touchdowns down, there's still a lot you can do to help get yourself back into that game. So I'm not going to do it if that's the case, but just a couple little scenarios there to help get players back into a game if the dice have really just turned on them. All right, also on that subject, I do not like stalling. GW, I don't think likes stalling either. They've tried to introduce a rule in here to prevent players from stalling. I don't think it goes far enough. It kind of takes away from the thematics for me. In no sport would a player with an open goal or a chance of scoring a touchdown, would they not take it or just stand around with their arms crossed and not score the touchdown. So I don't like stalling as part of the game. I can't remember what GW's exact rule is, but I've come up with my own. Basically, if a player can score a touchdown without rolling any dice at the start of that player's turn, every player that coach activates before the player that can score a touchdown, the opponent will get to roll a dice after that player is activated, and on a 6, the crowd throws a stone at the player who's not ran the ball in for a touchdown, on a 6, knocking them to the ground, dropping the ball and causing a turnover. Also, if the player then does activate the player with the ball and they move but don't score a touchdown, then there'll be stones thrown at them as well for doing that. So just kind of trying to stop that happening. I want games to be engaging and moving forward, and if there's a chance for a player to score a touchdown, I think they would. It doesn't matter what the team, even scheming Skaven, they would want the touchdown. So that's the next rule. All right, now we get to the scoring system for this league. So in the rulebook, it's basically it's 3 points for a win and it's 1 point for a draw. And then it says if you want to include adding 1 point for scoring 3 touchdowns or an extra bonus point for causing 3 casualties, or an extra bonus point for keeping a clean sheet, you can include all of those things, which I have. The only little tweak that I've made, which is maybe overly complicated, is I've increased the points that you get for a draw to 2 rather than 1, but also implemented that if you have a draw, you can't score any bonus points. So if a game ends 0-0, both those coaches get 2, but they don't get any benefits on top of that. Reason being is I think getting a draw, which would normally be worth 1 point, should be worth more than getting beat, but say causing 3 casualties. In both those situations, the teams would get the same amount of points. I think getting a draw should be worth more, so I've increased that to 2. But I also don't think that if you get a draw and cause 3 casualties, or get a draw and keep a clean sheet, that should be worth as much as a win. So that's why I've taken away the bonus points that you can get from that. So slight little change there. It's maybe more complicated than it needs to be, but hey, that's what I've done. All right, and lastly, we get to star players. So basically, I've reduced the amount of star players that coaches have access to. Again, for the same reason of I don't want everybody have to be like reading through 50 different star players to decide which one is going to be a good fit for their team for the game coming up, and then they've got to go out, buy the model, and then have it ready for the game. I've basically reduced it to 8, but obviously in Blood Bowl, different star players can only play for different teams. I've kind of gotten rid of all that. Basically, the way I see it is the league has purchased 8 star players to have on retainer for the duration of the league, which I'll go into in a later video exactly which star players those are. But if the star player is designed by GW in the same theme of the team that they're playing for, so example, Rodney Roachbait is a gnome. If he was to play on the gnome team, currently in the rulebook he has a 4+ loner rule. So what that means is if you wanted to use a reroll with Rodney Roachbait, you would need a 4+ for that to activate. So what I've done is I've changed that for the teams that they're designed to be part of. So Rodney Roachbait, only when he's on the gnome team, that will be a 2+. say we had another Woodland League team in the division. So say we had Wood Elves, for example. It would still be a 4+ if he was playing on the Wood Elf team, but if he was to play on any other team, it'll be a 6+ to showcase that, you know, he is a little uncomfortable playing for these teams. If he's on a gnome team, he's familiar with their play style, he understands what the coach expects from him. He gets better access to those rerolls, just need a 2+ to pull off. It's a minor change, and again, probably more complicated than it needs to be, but hey, I've done it, I've let the players know, we've started the league, so it's in. A little bit of extra fun. Anyway, this video, hopefully it's a little bit interesting for you at home. It's also key for the players. They're going to have a look at this before their games and kind of familiarize themselves with the rules and the sort of tweaks that I've made to the division. At the end of the week, I will be covering the star players that we brought to the league, so keep an eye out for that video. But before then, just let us know how you think this league's panning out. Are you getting excited for it? Again, which team are you rooting for? Who do you think are the underdogs? Who do you think are the favourites? Let us know in the comments. Really excited to start rolling some dice and get it going. So we'll see you for the first game very soon.